Most of us spend a lot of time looking outside of ourselves for answers that were always going to have to come from within. Be your own fucking guru. That's what this series is about. I'm Ryan Paul McGuigan, and this is Beneath the Noise. Right, so in the last episode, I told you about Jack and Colin. Two very different people, two very different sets of circumstances, two outcomes that neither of them nor I saw coming. And I finished by saying that what the container produces is a depth of access. This episode is about what that depth looks like as a way of living. But before then, I want to tell you about something that happened 2 or 3 months into my time here in Portugal. I'd made the move from Belfast. The vision was clear. The conviction was solid. I was living less than 10 minutes from the beach. The sun was shining every day. The work was coming together. The clarity and the restored self-belief that had come from the practice were doing their job. And from where I was standing, everything was looking rosy. And then things weren't looking so rosy. The direction I'd chosen for the work stopped coming together the way I'd hoped. And to add insult to injury, I got sidetracked by another course that I felt would have complemented my offerings, but turned out not to be right for me. So I'd spent time and money with little or nothing to show for it. So I was a bit pissed off at myself at this stage, to be honest. And as January progressed, the beautiful sunny days in the Algarve I'd been experiencing till now, and that I was expecting to continue, completely changed. Unseasonable weeks of grey and rain showed up instead. I was spending most of my time alone in an apartment, without my usual daily walks on the beach, and it was relentless for a period of about 6 weeks. The pressure was starting to build, and the pressure turned into stress, and the stress turned into worry, and the worry turned into anxiety. And the kind of questions I recognised only too well. Had I done the right thing, leaving Belfast to come here by myself? Was I actually capable of making this work? Was I just kidding myself? At the same time, I was keeping up with all my usual healthy habits. The morning breathing exercises, the journaling, the stretching, the walks, when the weather allowed. But I couldn't shake the stress and anxiety. And that's when I realised, somewhere in that period of things going well, I'd stopped doing the practice. It wasn't through any deliberate decision. It was just that the urgency had gone. And when you're stuck, the practice feels essential. When things are moving, the subconscious logic is that you don't need it in the same way. So it just quietly faded out, and I stopped reaching for it without really noticing. When I recognised what had happened, I decided immediately to put on one of my own recordings. I chose one similar to what you've just done. It's longer and more detailed, but the inner prompt around listening from the heart for any encouragement, any strength, or any truth. And I literally had to fight against my own analytical mind, which was trying to tell me what was going to come up during the practice. After all, I knew the scripts of the meditations. I knew the kinds of things the inner voice would say. Everything about the session was predictable to me. So what was the point? Well, it turns out there was a point. What came back was immediate. Portugal was still wet, still grey. The plans that hadn't worked still hadn't worked. The facts of my situation were exactly the same as they'd been the hour before I sat down. But how I was seeing all of it, how I felt about it, had completely shifted. So the weather was temporary. The things that hadn't worked had at least shown me what didn't, and that had its own value. The overall direction was still sound. The message that I had was still worthy of shouting from the rooftops. Be your own fucking guru. I just needed to adjust how I wanted to communicate it and share it. The results to date proved that it was valuable, if not priceless, for people. My confidence came back, my sense of what I was capable of came back, and the hope that had quietly disappeared was there again. One practice. And there's a couple of things I understood from that. The first thing is that the practice is worth doing, even if you think you know what's going to come up, because you usually don't. And also, something I don't think gets said enough in this kind of work is that the practice isn't something you do once and move on from. It's not just a one off fix for a particular crisis or challenge. It's the thing that keeps you connected to yourself moving forward. It's the thing that will help prevent future drift and help nip any emerging challenges in the bud. And of course, it's always there as well when life gets loud enough to drown everything else out. What it produces isn't just a shift in how you feel about a particular thing, it's access to the part of you that can see clearly, even when nothing around you has changed, and puts everything into perspective. And it makes it all manageable. And without the continued practice, that access goes quiet. It's never gone, but the noise gets loud enough to cover it. And it's surprising how much that then sounds like truth. Now, here's what that means. In the context of the 7-week container, what the container produces is not just the initial shift. Obviously, that shift matters enormously. The things that Jack and Colm experienced, that the others experienced, and that I've experienced myself, those are real and they change things. But the container also gives you something else. It gives you the tools, the skills, and equally importantly, the habit to continue your own practice from there, independently, without me, without anyone else. You leave with everything you need to answer your own challenges for the rest of your life. That's not a claim I make lightly. What you're building inside those 7 weeks is a practice that belongs to you. I'm there alongside you to guide you and teach you how to use the resources and build a habit. But then the ability to access what matters is yours for life. It was always yours. We're just making sure you know how to get back to it at any time you need to. The 7-week work is the foundation. The practice is what you live on after. And that brings me to what all of this is actually for. I want to describe it in terms of 3 things as a description of what life actually starts to look like when the internal foundation is solid. The first is exploring. Curiosity active again, not the grinding analytical loop that goes round and round the same territory without landing. Genuine curiosity, an actual interest in what's there, what's possible, what life might contain that you stopped allowing yourself to look for. When people are stuck in the going through the motions, curiosity tends to be one of the first things to go quiet. When the foundation shifts, it tends to be one of the first things to come back. The second is experiencing, being genuinely present in your own life rather than watching it from a distance. A lot of people I've worked with describe before we start some version of the same thing, a sense of not really being there, living on autopilot, or going through the motions of life, or performing it. When the connection to yourself comes back, the texture of ordinary life changes. You're in it, not observing it, and you're choosing more of it rather than just enduring it. And the third is expressing, the authentic output that is yours and yours alone. Not productivity, not performance, the things that came through you and belong to you and no one else. What that looks like for me right now, this podcast is the most obvious example. The thinking this through, articulating it, writing it, saying it out loud, finding the language for things I've come to understand over years of doing this work. That's an act of expression. I spent so much time in flow state while working on this, and it's something I genuinely find rewarding in a way that's separate from any practical outcome. It gives me a sense of depth, of meaning, and purpose. I genuinely believe in the message. I'm happy to shout it from the rooftops. And the fact that I now have a creative outlet where I can say what I actually think and bring my own experiences into it and maybe allow someone to see themselves in some version of my story or Jack's or Column's. That matters to me in a way that goes beyond what I set out to build. And there's a line I believe in completely. It's not mine, I heard it somewhere, but it's this: the suppression of expression leads to depression. That's not a metaphor. That's an accurate description of what happens to people over time when the things that bring them genuine joy aren't free to come out of their head or their body into the real world. Right now, I'm living with the handbrake off. I'm in the Algarve in Portugal. I'm living in an apartment on the 10th floor. My balcony faces east, where I catch the morning sun. My laptop is out on the small table, and I work and enjoy my morning coffee here every day. And the work is meaningful. The beach is less than 10 minutes away. The park is a stone throw away. I've made some friends, mostly fellow digital nomads. And importantly, work and life are not two separate things competing with each other. They're one thing. I love it here, but I'm not quite ready to settle anywhere just yet. I have more exploring and experiencing to do. But it's where I've chosen to be right now, and it's exactly as deliberate as that. This is what freedom by design looks like for me, from the inside. A way of moving through your life, present in it, curious about what it contains, making conscious choices, and expressing something real from it. There's a name I give to that place where this work ends up, and I want to leave you with it. Unfuckwithable. What I mean by unfuckwithable is this: when your self-worth, your self-esteem, your self-love, your self-acceptance, your self-belief, self-confidence, and your self-trust, the 7 things we talked about at the start of this series, when all those things are built from within, rather than borrowed from a job, a title, a relationship, someone else's approval, no one can take them away from you. So you become so stable from your own foundation that the outside world cannot easily perturb you. You know your inherent worth. It's not up for debate. You can back yourself to make the best of a situation. You are so comfortable in your own skin that the opinions and judgments of others become irrelevant. As long as you know you can look yourself in the mirror, look yourself in the eye, the only opinion that matters is your own. I'm not talking about perfection or immunity from difficulty or pain. It's not the total absence of doubt, just a person who is genuinely connected and grounded in themselves, who knows what's true for them, who knows what's important to them, and knows what they want, and who can act from that place without needing permission from the outside world. I'll give you a concrete example of what this looks like in practice for me. Building this business has required me to put myself out there in ways that would have been genuinely unthinkable for me a few years back. The whole social media marketing thing, this podcast, saying something so publicly with my head above the parapet, inviting disagreement, inviting judgment. There are people who see things differently to me about what I've been talking about in this series, and that's absolutely fine. I'm genuinely able to hold that without it shifting anything. And I know that when problems arise, which they inevitably will, that I can back myself to handle them as well as they can be handled. If the practice keeps doing what it does, some of those problems will probably dissolve altogether or not even exist in the first place, since so many of them only exist in our heads. That's what a solid internal foundation actually feels like when you're standing on it. And this business has done something interesting in that regard. It's pulled me forward. It's made me want to be seen and heard in a way I didn't expect. made me want to say the thing, put it out, let it land where it lands, because I'm comfortable enough in my own skin and in what I know to be true from my own experience and the experience of the people I've worked with, that the outside world's response to it doesn't move me. The results speak for themselves. That's being unfuckwithable. There's one more episode in this series. It's a plain, honest account of what this work actually is, who it's built for, and how to find out whether it's right for you. No pressure, no urgency. That's what comes next. Thanks for listening to Beneath the Noise. If something in this landed for you, pass it on to someone you think could use it. And the next episode is there when you're ready.